You want to know what it's like being a sister of battle in 40K? Imagine waking up every single morning knowing that you're not special at all. No genetic enhancements, no psychic powers, no superhuman reflexes or fancy backup organs installed. Just you, a suit of power armor, and absolute certainty that God loves you. That's your entire competitive advantage against literal screaming demons crawling out of hell. The Space Marines get 2 hearts and can spit corrosive acid whenever they want. The Custodes are basically demigods wrapped in gold and radiating pure existential confidence always. You get a hymnal, a flamer, and severe childhood trauma from the Schola Progenium. And somehow that's actually enough to make the Chaos Gods genuinely nervous about you. Here's the thing about the sisters that nobody ever really talks about enough. They're the only faction in 40K where faith actually and measurably works consistently. Not metaphorically works, not gives them courage works. It literally and actually works. Living saints come back from the dead wreathed in golden holy fire pretty regularly. Sisters have manifested force fields made of pure belief during desperate last stands before. Bolter shells have curved mid-flight because a battle sister prayed hard enough for miracles. This isn't ecclesiarchy propaganda. This is documented Imperial battlefield footage and verified hard data. The Imperium has a million lies, but this particular one might actually be true. So let's talk about what your life actually looks like as a battle sister. You weren't born into this. Nobody chooses to join the sororitas at their birth. You were probably an orphan, a tithe child, or a refugee from some forgotten war. The Schola Progenium took you in when you had absolutely nothing left at all, and they gave you everything you needed. Food, shelter, purpose, and unshakable holy faith. They also gave you 12-hour prayer sessions starting at around age 6 every day. They gave you brutal combat training before you even learned what childhood was supposed to mean. They gave you a worldview where doubt is literally considered worse than painful death. By the time you're 16, you don't even remember what your parents' faces look like. But you can recite the Fede Imperialis backwards while field stripping a bolter with your eyes closed. That's not brainwashing. That's just called standard education in the Imperium of Man. And here's the uncomfortable part that makes this whole thing genuinely complicated to think about. You're not unhappy about any of it. You're actually the complete opposite of unhappy. You have purpose so pure and bright, it burns away every question and doubt. You know exactly why you exist, and you know precisely what you're meant to do. You will fight for him, you will burn heretics, and you will die gloriously. And when you die, the Emperor himself will welcome your immortal soul back home. That certainty, that absolute cosmic confidence. Most people will never feel that ever in life. Space Marines are hypno-conditioned to feel nothing. Just cold duty without any joy or meaning. Guardsmen fight because the alternative is getting shot in the head by their own commissar. But you genuinely and passionately want to serve him with every fiber of your being. Every burning heretic is a love letter to your God, written in holy cleansing flame. That's not grimdark. That's actually the most terrifying sincerity in all of Warhammer 40K. Let me show you what a typical day actually looks like for a battle sister. You wake at 0400, because sleep is time stolen directly from the Emperor's sacred work. Morning prayers last 2 full hours, and you sing every single hymn with genuine passion. Your voice is hoarse by breakfast, and you consider that hoarseness a holy, blessed gift. Breakfast is nutripaste and recaf, because luxury is a heretical distraction from your sacred duty. Then combat drills until your muscles scream and beg desperately for the Emperor's sweet mercy. You've fired 10,000 bolter rounds, and your shoulder is nothing but pure scar tissue. Afternoon is study time. Tactics, theology, and the lives of saints who died horribly screaming. Evening prayers follow. Then maybe 4 hours of sleep if you're actually lucky that night. Repeat this exact schedule for 60 years until something finally manages to kill you dead. And here's the thing. You genuinely love every single moment of this brutal life. Not because you're broken, but because you found something that's actually worth living for. Most people in 40K are desperately searching for meaning in the cold, uncaring void of space. You found yours at age 8, and you have never once looked back since then. Now let's talk about your first real combat deployment against the enemies of mankind itself. You're 19 years old. You've trained for 13 years, and you're absolutely completely terrified inside. Not of dying. You've made your peace with death since your childhood ended so early. You're terrified of failing him, of being unworthy of the sacred armor that you wear. The sisters standing next to you have all killed enemies before, and it clearly shows. Their eyes have that particular flatness that comes from seeing true cosmic horror repeatedly unfold. Your canoness gives the signal, and you breach the heretic compound screaming holy battle hymns. The first cultist you see is a woman, maybe 30 years old, holding a knife. She's crying and praying desperately to something dark that definitely isn't the God Emperor at all. You pull the trigger without any hesitation, and she comes apart in a red mist. You feel absolutely nothing in that moment. Then, you feel guilty for feeling nothing at all. Later, kneeling alone in the chapel, you quietly ask if something is wrong with you. The Sister Superior just laughs, like you somehow told her the funniest joke she's ever heard. Wrong with you? Child, that emptiness is the Emperor's sacred gift to all his warriors. He takes the weight from us so we can keep fighting for him forever faithfully. And you believe her completely, because honestly, the alternative is just too heavy to carry. Here's where the sisters get genuinely interesting from a deeper and more philosophical standpoint today. They've seen real miracles happen. Documented, repeatable miracles that genuinely shouldn't be possible at all. The wound closed while her entire squad watched. Golden light pouring out from inside her body. She killed 30 more heretics before finally collapsing, and she actually survived the whole entire ordeal. The Inquisition investigated her case for 6 months and found absolutely no warp taint present whatsoever. Her faith was simply just that strong, and it literally rewrote local reality around her. So here's the question that should honestly keep you awake at night thinking about it. If faith in the Emperor can manifest actual, real miracles consistently and repeatedly when documented, does that mean he's actually a god now, regardless of whatever he was originally before? The Imperial Truth said there were no gods, just powerful warp entities lurking beyond reality. The Emperor himself loudly insisted he wasn't divine during the entire era of the Great Crusade. But that was 10,000 years ago, before he sat upon the Golden Throne dying. 10,000 years of quadrillions of humans all believing he's a god simultaneously every day. In the warp, belief shapes reality. That's literally exactly how the 4 chaos gods work. So what happens when humanity's collective belief creates something new in the Emperor's exact image? Is he answering prayers, or did prayers actually create something new that now answers back? The sisters don't ask this question out loud because doubt is heresy by absolute definition. But you're not a sister. You can sit here and think about it all you want. And that uncomfortable uncertainty is honestly the most 40k thing about this entire faction, really. Let's talk about the enemies you'll face as a sister of battle serving him. Not the easy ones like orcs or Dark Eldar raiders who just want simple pain. The hard ones, the enemies that genuinely test what you actually believe deep down inside. Your first real demon encounter is going to break something inside you permanently and forever. Not because it physically hurts you, but because it proves the warp is absolutely, truly real. You knew theoretically that chaos existed somewhere out there, as an abstract theological concept, maybe. But actually seeing a real demon is different from knowing that demons exist, academically speaking. It's a thing made of screaming faces and impossible angles that shouldn't be able to exist. It smells like burnt copper, mixed sickeningly with your dead mother's perfume all at once. It knows your name intimately, and it knows every sin you've committed since age 4. And it offers you things. Not power, not wealth, not glory, just simple, peaceful rest. Stop fighting, it whispers seductively, and I'll make all the nightmares go away completely forever. For 1 second, one tiny fraction of a heartbeat, you actually seriously consider saying yes. Then you pull the trigger and you keep pulling until the flamer runs completely dry. The demon's banished back to the warp, but that moment of doubt lives in you forever. You'll confess it tearfully to your confessor and do harsh penance for 6 full months. You'll flagellate yourself until your back is nothing but ugly permanent scar tissue throughout. And you'll never tell anyone that for 1 brief second, peace actually sounded really nice. That's the secret burden every sister carries inside and never ever talks about openly together. The doubt that lives quietly in the space between heartbeats, always waiting and always patient. Now let's talk about something the recruitment materials definitely don't ever mention at all anywhere. Sometimes you'll be ordered to burn people who don't actually seem like heretics at all. A village that asks too many uncomfortable questions about why their tithes increased so suddenly. A scholar who found an ancient book that said something only slightly wrong theologically speaking. Children, actual innocent children whose only crime was having a psyker sibling living nearby. You'll follow orders because orders come from the ecclesiarchy, which speaks directly for God himself. And God doesn't make mistakes, which means those screaming children were guilty of something somehow. You'll smell burning flesh and desperately tell yourself over and over, this was mercy, really. Mercy, because a quick death is better than what chaos would eventually do to them. Mercy, because their souls are clean now and heading straight to the Emperor's golden light. And deep down, in that quiet place where your doubt lives, you'll wonder very silently, what if we're actually the monsters here? What if faith just means following orders blindly? The sister who thinks that thought too loudly becomes a repentia by the next morning. Stripped of armor completely, given a massive two-handed sword, sent to die seeking fast redemption. Most repentia last about 30 seconds in actual real combat situations on average, typically speaking. That's not punishment. That's the sororitas efficiently taking out their own theological garbage and doubt. But here's the thing that makes the sisters genuinely, unironically heroic despite everything I just said. They know the Imperium is cruel and bloody and wrong. They've seen too much. They've witnessed enough burning innocents to understand exactly what they're a part of here. And they choose to believe anyway, because the only alternative is accepting pure cosmic horror. If the Emperor isn't worth serving, then 10,000 years of sacrifice meant nothing at all. If faith is actually a lie, then every sister who died screaming died for absolutely nothing. So they choose to believe, not despite all the horrible evidence, but actually because of it. That's not stupidity. That's honestly the most human response possible to an inhuman universe. When everything is terrible and nothing makes any sense, you find something to hold on to. The sisters found theirs. A golden throne and a silent, screaming corpse sitting upon it. And they have never been more certain of anything in their entire lives than this. Let me tell you about the living saints, because they're absolutely fascinating entities to consider. These are sisters who died in battle and came back burning with golden divine fire. Celestine is the most famous one. She's died at least 7 confirmed times so far. Every time she dies, she resurrects on a battlefield where faith itself is being tested hard. She doesn't remember dying. Just warmth, then light. Then she's fighting again instantly once more. The Inquisition has studied her for centuries, and they still cannot explain anything about her. She's not a daemon, not a psyker, not a perpetual like the Emperor once was. She's just a woman who believed so incredibly hard that reality finally gave up arguing. And here's the terrifying implication of her existence that nobody really wants to talk about. If one sister can become a living saint through pure faith and martyrdom alone, why aren't there more of them? Why doesn't every worthy martyr come back burning and glorious? Is Celestine somehow special? Or are all the others just not believing hard enough inside? Imagine being a sister and knowing that resurrection is actually possible if you're truly worthy. Then dying in battle and staying dead and realizing you weren't faithful enough after all. That's the theological trap the living saints accidentally create for every other sister who serves. Perfection is demonstrably possible, and you're not achieving it. So what's deeply wrong with you? No pressure though. Just eternal damnation waiting if you don't love God quite hard enough. Let's talk about what happens when a sister actually gets old against all the odds. Most don't make it that far. Combat life expectancy is about 15 years on average. But some survive long enough, some get promoted high, some become canonesses leading entire sacred orders. These women have seen absolutely everything. Demons, xenos, heretics, and horrors far beyond simple naming. They've burned children and watched their closest friends die screaming the Emperor's name in desperation. They've had their faith tested 1,000 times over, and they have never once broken. And they're still going, still fighting, still believing with absolute iron certainty every single day. That's either the most inspiring thing in 40K or the most deeply disturbing thing possible. Because what does it actually take to see that much horror and still keep believing? Either the Emperor is real and sustaining them through impossible spiritual trials beyond human endurance, or they've simply broken in a way that looks exactly like strength from the outside. The Imperium can't tell the difference between those two options. And honestly, neither can they. Here's your ending, and I'm not going to wrap this up neatly for you. The Sisters of Battle are the Imperium's answer to a genuinely impossible theological question asked. How do you fight actual gods with nothing but human flesh and human will alone? You believe so hard that your belief becomes its own kind of ammunition fired outward. You burn so bright that the darkness itself has to look away from you momentarily. You die so gloriously that your death becomes a weapon against despair itself for others. Is it faith or madness? Is the Emperor God or just humanity's desperate collective dream? Does it even matter when the bolter fires true and the heretic falls down dead? The sisters don't ask because asking those questions is the first step toward breaking completely. They just believe and fight and burn and die and then believe again once more. And maybe that's the most honest answer 40K has ever given anyone about anything real. In a universe where everything is terrible and nothing makes any sense at all ever, the only winning move is to find something worth dying for and hold on tight. The sisters found theirs. A golden throne and a silent, screaming corpse upon it. And they've never been more certain of anything in their entire lives than this truth. That certainty is either humanity's greatest strength or its most beautiful and tragic delusion ever. Either way, it's enough to make the dark gods themselves pause and actually reconsider things. And in the grim dark